business meeting for Independent School District 622. First on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and then we need to approve the agenda. So can I get a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Livingston.
Second.
Second by Jarman. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. Okay, the agenda is approved. We have public comment opportunity. We have one person for public comment, but the public comment is related to the opportunity for public discussion for property tax levy later in the meeting. So next on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of routine items that are acted on in a single consolidated motion without board discussion. Board members have the option of pulling items off the consent agenda if they wish to discuss them or consider them individually. Tonight on the agenda we have minutes of the November 23rd, 2021 business meeting, minutes of the December 7th, 2021 work study session, routine personnel, bid calendar, change orders, and disbursements. So I'm going to read the resolution. Say, be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 622 that consent agenda items 4A through 4F be approved as written, and a copy of the agenda items is attached to the minutes. Can I get a motion and a second to approve?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Natardi,
Second.
second by Martins. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. So the consent agenda is approved. The next section we have is our reports, and first we have our student school board representatives, and Stephanie and Tiara.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie. Nice to see you all again. I feel like every time we see each other, it's like every week, I feel like. But like time flies by so fast. I enjoy it, though. I enjoy it. This report may look a little different than the ones we have presented the past 3 months. As you may remember, Tiara asked a question last school board and asked us about different topics you guys wanted to hear about. And this month, Ben asked us to present about like our work with counselors and just counselors in general. So my school counselor is Miss Jacqueline Larson. She works with the entire 11th grade. And I am a person who likes to communicate with people that I know are going to be working with me about my goals and my dreams that I have for myself. And I knew that coming into high school, she was going to be a good person to reach out with any questions regarding school and college readiness. Many students have had fear to talk to their counselors because they think that they should only talk to them when you have a problem, but I think that's one of many areas that counselors work in. Miss Larson is a great person I reach out to concerning grades and transcripts and learning about what I can do to make myself a better student and a better candidate for college applications. Counselors work with students who need a little extra help or push to get to where they need to be. And they also work with students who need that emotional or mental support and need someone to talk to and receive advice from. They also work with putting together student schedules, so they modify schedules when students change or request a change in their schedule. And I think that counselors are a very important part of the high school community and play an important role in student success. And I just want to thank you for the question and for giving us the opportunity to have someone as important as a counselor that we can go to whenever we are concerned. And thank you for the work that counselors do. So what is happening within our Chardon community? We have started the second trimester of the school year. This means a fresh new start and another chance to get grades up or continue to keep grades high. Our DECA students were able to have the opportunity to go to the Mall of America and learn about the behind the scenes about running a mall or a business as big as the mall. On Saturday, the Tartan chapter of the MN Urban Debate League, it's a hard thing to say, won the entire rookie bracket. Our top 4 teams took all bracket places and were crowned co-champions of the Minnesota Urban Debate League City Championships. According to Augsburg College, this is the first time this has ever happened, so it was an amazing thing to do. And Tartan Theater had their first Christmas show about 2 weeks ago. It was a big success. I was not able to attend, but I heard from many students that they really enjoyed this act. Yesterday, our National Honor Society students had their holiday volunteer extravaganza, and this was an opportunity for NHS students to come together and get to know each other and make blankets and to get volunteer hours. Seniors continue to work on their college applications, and many of them have received responses from many of their desired colleges. Tartan girls hockey have been on a roll. Girls hockey have won 5 of their many games, and girls basketball have won their first game last Thursday. Tartan boys hockey have won 3 of their many games as well. Overall, winter sports are going fantastic, and I hope they keep up the good work. Winter break is coming up, so I hope you all get the chance to unwind and spend time together with your loved ones. I know students need this time to just unwind and relax. COVID cases are rising within our building, but students and staff continue to follow protocols. Cases have not risen enough to shut down a classroom or a grade section completely, but just enforcing that mask mandate and as much as possible. There was an email sent out today to both Tartan and North students to receive feedback from students about their experience at school. This is a great opportunity to hear back from students about what's working and what needs to improve. And I know you will all vote today on weighing PSEO grades, and as a PSEO student myself, I just wanted to add that although we can look at all of the pros and all of the cons, in all, this will be benefiting the students, and which is an important part of our community. And so many of us students worry about getting a B or a certain score because it's not weighted. It'll affect our GPA and our transcripts that go to colleges. Not only have I voiced this concern, but many PSEO students have come to me saying that concern, and when they heard about this new change, they were so excited because they get to stand out like AP and CIS students. So that's one last thing I just wanted to add. And so this is the end of my report, and I just like to say that if we don't see each other again this year, Happy New Year's and Happy Holidays. Whether you celebrate the holiday or not, I hope you spend time with your loved ones and stay warm. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to ask questions or contact me personally. Thank you.
Hi, just like Stephanie said, I feel like I just seen you guys a week ago. But I hope over the Thanksgiving break everybody got a chance to relax and unwind a little bit and eat some good food, because I know I did. So what she was saying about the counselors, we at my school have 4: Miss Cosgrove, Miss Yamamoto, Miss Hager, and Miss Bai, and I was fortunate to be able to hear what they had to say last year during distance because of Avid. And I got to hear from Miss Cosgrove and Miss Hager, and what they had to say was really interesting, because I wouldn't have known that if I didn't get a chance to have Zoom with them, because I never had a chance to go to my counselors because I never thought I needed to. But counselors do help with personal and social concerns, academics and colleges and what you need to prepare for that or any of that sort of things, and then in career plannings. But I hope to talk to my counselors at least once or twice throughout my last 2 years here about colleges, because I feel what they have to say about colleges would be beneficial to me. But for my report, so far North's varsity bowling team went to the high school state bowling on December 4th, which was really cool because I didn't even know we had a bowling team. So that was interesting to hear. The drama team won the Outstanding Achievement Award for the fall play Mamma Mia, which is great. The Northern Lights Choir had their show premiere on December 4th, which was placed in the auditorium, which was free to watch if anybody did watch it. December 7th, the AVID class went to visit Stout University in Wisconsin, which was a long and cold hour drive, but it was good to see, and I really liked the campus up there because it was all close together. You didn't have to walk so far, especially because it was like snowing outside. So everything was all close together, which I really liked. The band had their concert on December 9th. Starting December 15th, the NHS group will go to all the 6-hour classes and collect money donations that will go towards the North Star Youth the Youth Outreach Center. The Rotary Club has a performance on December 17th at 7 a.m. If anybody wants to check that out, I know it's like pretty early, but it'd be cool to see. We had 2 juniors who won the 2021 through 22 MSHSL Excel Energy Award for Excellence in Community Education and Leadership, who was Geraldine Cushman and Frederick Hesser, which I know both of them, so it's kind of really cool to hear that from my grade. The winter break starts on the 23rd, which is a Thursday, and goes through the January 2nd, and class resumes that Monday, which I'm so excited for. So I get to hopefully go like sledding with my little brothers who are 3, and I think it'll be so cute for them and so much fun, so I'm excited for that. And that will conclude my presentation. I hope everybody has a good winter break, and I'll see you guys in the next year. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, you guys. Any questions or comments? Nancy?
Oh, I just want to say I appreciated your expansion of your report to the counselor report was really interesting. I think you're on a roll here with just letting us know how different sections of the school are operating and affecting you as students. So thank you for that. Yeah, I know our counselors are really busy, really busy in December with this college application looming deadlines. So anyway, good luck to you, and thanks for the good wishes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I echo what she just said about thanking you guys for expanding on your reports and talking about what your counselors do and to help you. We all know that counselors do a tremendous job in making sure that graduates actually graduate and move on to be effective citizens in our society. But my question is about my question is always about, because you guys know what's happening in the schools and you know what's buzzing. I mean, I'm not young enough to know what the correct word is either. But what are you guys talking about in regards to the winter break? And as you guys know, some schools have cut winter break. They made it much longer because of COVID, because of other circumstances going on in the schools. And what are you hearing at Tartan or North High about that? Are there any students talking about it, or they don't even care, or Yeah. So can you tell us about? Again, I might be using the wrong word, but what is the buzz about what students are talking about?
So I feel like as students, like we all think that the break is always too short because we always like want like a longer break and just like time to relax, because I mean, who doesn't like to be in bed, But I think it's a good enough break that it gives us time to just put ourselves together again, because even though the trimester just started, second trimester is we feel always the longest trimesters. I know teachers as well as students think that, but I think it gives us time to just put ourselves together and just like be ready for this new year and just start pushing again. But I haven't heard much about the break or being too short or anything. So yeah.
For my school, I haven't heard anything about being too long. I don't think anybody would say it's too long, or to be too short. But I think I feel like everybody's like excited for it, just to have like that mental health break if they needed that, and just to relax from all like the stress that could be built up from this new trimester, or like worrying about college or like financial aid that's due soon too. So I think the winter break is like a good amount of time, but it could always be longer. I won't judge on that. But I think it's a good time for everybody to like relax and de-stress and all that stuff.
Okay, thanks a lot, you guys. Next on the agenda is business office.
Chair Yunner, directors of the board, Superintendent Tucci Osorio, members of the cabinet. It's that time of year again where we start our planning for next year's budget. As you remember, our fiscal year goes from July 1st to June 30th. And so we're setting our levy, final levy certification, which does impact the 2022-2023 budget that starts this coming July 1st. After I'm done with this presentation and any discussion with the public, then I'll invite Jackie from MMKR to close out our 2021 fiscal year, which just ended June 30th. So we're kind of what I call kind of in this vortex where we're finishing up one year, we're in a current year, and now we're already planning for the following year. So I always looked at this time as one of a lot of planning, a lot of going on. So tonight we're going to give our required levy, and what used to be called the Truth in Taxation meeting is now basically just called budget and levy discussion with the public. And so according to Minnesota taxation law, we're required to discuss the levy and budget at a regular school board meeting, and then we will be approving the levy during our action items. Okay, we've already approved. Remember this year's budget that happened in June. So anyway, we're starting it out, and remember we did our proposed levy that we technically certified in September. All right, and preliminary tax statements did go out around Thanksgiving. And then we have, after that, we have a certain period of time where we refine again, and by December 28th, we have to do a final levy certification. So before I get there, I'm just going to take a quick look at the budget. I'm going to compare the revised budget for 2021 and 21-22. This is the current budget now. Our current fiscal year is 21-22. You can kind of see revenues, general fund being our largest fund. And again, the overall total revenues from last year for all 9 of our funds is up about $3.7 million, as you can see. So general fund, remember, is our largest fund. It is what we do. We're in the people business. We're in the teaching business. And so the general fund, educating stakeholders of our district, it should be the largest piece of our budget. You can see the general fund is about 70.85% of all the revenues in the district. And again, if you throw in the self-insured health and the self-insured dental, you can kind of see it gets us close to about 80%, in the general fund. Then you can kind of see that debt service then makes up our second highest part of the revenues for the funds. When we're taking a look at the expenditures, again, it's not surprising that the general fund is our largest fund. We're up about $7 million in expenditures from last year. And as you can see, construction is our next highest, and that's because of our voter-approved, $275 million voter-approved, and our long-term facilities maintenance projects that we've been doing. We're impacting the whole school, so you can kind of see then that this year we're budgeted to have spent about $104 million. Just in comparison, last year we spent about $105 million on all of our projects. And of course, remember last week we approved the sale of our last bonds, voter-approved bonds. and that sale was for approximately $89 million. And so that will be put towards fund our Phase 4, Tartan North, and some other projects that will be done, in the future. Again, as you can see, the expenditures, basically, the expenditures are considerably higher than the revenues because of the construction fund. And again, remember, when the building's all done, pretty much our total revenues will balance with our total expenditures. And because of the construction fund, in there it throws off, you can see the general fund is about 50% of those expenditures, and it's because of the construction fund being so high at $104 million, it throws off the percentages there a little bit. And once the construction is done, the general fund will have roughly probably about 80% of the expenditures too of all of our funds. Paid 2022 final levy information. Again, a school district's levy is set by three things: state formula, we have no control over that; voter approval, our stakeholders of this district have supported us with not only building bonds to redo the whole district, but with operating referendum, and so those were approved by voters. And then, of course, local factors, and these are discretionary things that you as a school board help decide with as we move forward. When you take a look at those three, you can see that approved by voters is the highest. 54% of this final levy certification was approved by the voters of the school district. 36% was discretionary or set by the board, and about 10% was mandatory or set by the state. Significant levy highlights. You're going to see that this final levy certification actually is decreasing from the proposed levy by about $373,000. Our LTFM, long-term facilities maintenance, pay-as-you-go levy is going to increase about $1.2 million. We are going to pay off, when we sold the bonds, we paid off our capital facilities bonds. And what that actually does is we were using general fund capital to make the payments on those. And so now our actual capital in the general fund will go back up about $613,000 since we're actually using some of those voter-approved bonds to pay off the capital facilities bonds that we used for Castle and Richardson. Community ed is increasing about $85,000 due to school-age care, again, with COVID and all these other things that are happening. And these are, school-age care is for special needs students and the support costs that are needed with those folks with our before and after school programming. Debt service, because of the new voter-approved bonds sold, you're going to see debt service is going up about $3.8 million. And I'll show you, as you'll see, that's our mortgage payment. And overall debt service is decreasing actually by $592,000. Oh yes, okay. So in 2004, 2005, there was some economic development that was done, and that's the Tamarack area over there. The school board back then voted to do the infrastructure over there, which actually ended up being a smart idea. And so with all the water and sewer, et cetera, of all those things that are happening, they help pay the development costs, because that's in our school district over there, of that new development at the time. Well, it kind of shut down for a while because of the 2008 Great Recession, et cetera, and so they didn't do a lot of that for about 3 or 4 years. And so they just, when I started here is when they basically started coming back and, redoing some of the streets and the infrastructure. That has varied. It's averaged about $350,000 a year. This year it was $520,000, and now next year it's going down to about $216,000. So it's been varying. I'd say we have about another 2 or 3 years left, and we'll be done with this. But it's averaged over time about $350,000. And again, in the long run, a great thing, because it's helped with our tax base. We are about 60% residential and about 40% commercial. So by having those developments, it helps our residential taxpayers keep their taxes lower. So ultimately, in the long run, a very good thing. So when you look at the general fund levy is actually going up 5.77%. And just some of the highlights, like I said, are lease levy, long-term facilities, maintenance. And you can remember that our goal here as a board in our planning is to keep our taxes flat unless we have some kind of a voter-approved event that's happened. And as you'll see, we've kept true to that, over time. Again, the general fund is going up. Some of these things are going down. Some of them are going up, but the overall increase is 5.77%, up to $31 million. When you take a look at the rest, it's broken down into 4 parts. You have the general fund, the community service fund, the debt service fund, and then of course the OPEB trust and debt service fund. You can kind of see then that the community service fund is going up about 4%, predominantly because of the school age care going from $575,000 to $660,000. Now when you look down at our debt service, you can kind of see that our older K through 12 bonds, we've done some refinancing, et cetera, have went down by about $2.6 million. We just sold, the last of our voter-approved bonds, and that mortgage and payment is going to be $3.8 million. You can see our long-term facility maintenance bonds payments have went down by $1.1 million. Our capital facilities bonds are going away because we paid them off with our new voter approved. And so when you look at total debt service, it's actually going down by about 2.6%. And remember, this is kind of a balancing act. And when we were working with others to make sure that we could balance this out for years and years to come, we wanted to make sure that we kept our levy somewhat flat. And the timing of when we sold these bonds was imperative. And so that's why, we sold the bonds this month. And next year then, you'll be ready to sell, about a year from now, you'll be ready to sell about another $40 million long-term facility maintenance bonds. Again, you're going to see that the impact to our voters, they shouldn't see any increases in their taxes unless we have some kind of a voter-approved question on the ballot, or unless their assessed value of their property actually goes up. As you'll see, I'm going to show you here in a second. So over originally our proposed levy was almost about a $1.6 million increase. It was lowered because of some debt service payments by about, like I said, about $373,000. So you can see then that our final levy certification is what we're asking for approval from last year, is about a 2.17% overall increase. Again, what the taxpayers got around Thanksgiving will be a little bit different because the actual final levy certification for us, school, is a little bit lower. When we take a look at our 6-year levy history, you can kind of see what's happened over time. And if you were to look at 2016, you would see that would be lower by about $6 million. You would see probably it would be about $41 million because in 2016, remember, we passed, an operating referendum, and so we popped it up there. And so during that time, we pretty much kept the total levy flat, as you can see, 2017, 2018, 2019. In 2019, the voters approved the $275 million worth of building bonds. And we sold the first issue of those building bonds. Thus, you can kind of see there was about a $6.5 million increase from 2019 to 2020. And then you can kind of see then from 2020, 2021, and 2022, we've kept it very, very, very flat, although we are seeing about a $1.2 million increase next year from this year. So what does that show us? Well, when we take a look at our actual property tax base, it's actually gone up about 5.8%. And so more homes or buildings have come online, commercial properties come online, and it's helped grow our tax base. So our net tax capacity is higher, okay? So now when you take a look at, let's say an average home in our district, $250,000, when we take a look at the amount levied, even though we're asking for about $1.2 million more next year than this year, you can actually see that if the assessed value of the property doesn't go up, that an average homeowner should see in their school portion of their taxes about a $20 decrease annually. And again, what happens and where things usually go out of whack is when somebody gets the 20% increase in their assessed value, or 10% or 15 or 30, and then that throws, that throws it somewhat out of whack. But again, if their assessed value of their property does not go up, then they should see in their school district portion of their taxes a decrease. And even that $20 offsets some of their, if their assessed property does go up, it's going to offset it by a little bit anyway. So anyway, with that, I will take any questions, or I guess I'll open it up to public comment first. I know we have somebody here. You want to state your name and where you live, and
do I just approach the microphone? Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is the first time I've come before such an assembly as this. As long as it's not my execution, I'm okay with it. I have nothing prepared to say. As a matter of fact, I looked at my memo calendar and I seen, geez, that's going on tonight, and I better beat it on over there. Unfortunately, I didn't even have the presence of mind to put my hearing aids in. So listening to you, and it would probably be gobbledygook to me anyway, because my mind is slipping a bit. I heard something though about a $20 increase in the taxes and decrease. Yeah, and I'm wondering, why is it that my taxes have gone up $400 or approximately? But anyway, I'm not here to try to make sense of everything, and you don't have to educate me. All I know is I've got an opportunity to do this, and I thought I would finally, find out where all this money is going to. My name is Patrick Horan, by the way. I reside at 2034 Hazelwood Street, right across the Gateway Trail from John Glenn.
is that North St. Paul?
It's Maplewood, North Maplewood. And I'm looking in the nighttime, and that is an impressive Olympic-sized swimming pool over there. And I watched them double up on the tennis courts, but I haven't seen a whole lot more traffic other than the girls' tennis teams over there. But I was wondering why such a big monumental swimming pool. What portion of the student population is actually going to use that? I don't know. But what was the price tag just for on those two items? I was just kind of curious.
Actually, the tennis courts were done before that project was done.
No.
And so when we redid the 4 courts and added the extra 4, it was because North High School didn't have any courts.
Okay.
And the city owns the courts that we have here at North High School, and they were unsafe to play on, and the city wouldn't actually sell us the property in order for us to fix them up. So that's the reason why we expanded at John Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
The project there for those tennis courts was about $500,000
Okay.
to redo the 4 and add 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the pool?
And the pool is about $9.5 million.
Yeah. Am I going to be able to use it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to charge me? Yeah, I already did in the promise. But
We haven't charged.
Well, I mean, there's, sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate you being here.
certainly.
Yeah, specific to the swimming pool, that is intended to be a community-wide pool. We've got, as you know, we don't have swimming pools at either one of our 2 high schools. So our pools are in our 2 middle schools. And those are used, first of all, by, of course, our own swim teams and whatnot. John Glenn is still under quite a bit of construction right now. So there's a lot of construction traffic still there. It's going to be a whole nother, not till end of next summer before the construction's going to be complete there. So,
Is that right?
yeah, because there's still a lot of different internal work happening. So you'll see construction traffic there for quite some time to come, a number of months yet. And then once that's all completed, obviously the North High students and the John Glenn students
and ideally even elementary students will be using it. And then also we have community education pool, like swimming lessons and pool rentals. And then there's also other organizations rent out our facilities on the days we don't have our own meets there. So they're, through our community education, the goal is also to be able to, rent out our space, kind of like we do with our ice arena, right? So we've got the ice arena, and Matamita uses it, and other communities rent it and pay us. We get income from that for renting out those spaces as well.
Okay. Well, I hope there's a lifeguard on duty when I.
Oh, without question.
But and I was told I was surprised that there'd be some pickleball over there available to the elderly population too.
Yeah.
When would you think that might show up at the tennis courts?
It's already there.
Oh, okay. I watch over there and I look, but you can't see everything that's going on.
All of our courts have pickleball lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, marvelous.
We've been doing a lot of conversations about pickleball, and badminton has become a big thing too. I'll say that, again, right now, because our two middle schools, it's John Glenn and Skyview, are both under a lot of construction right now, so it's not in any way getting its full load of traffic yet, because there's still so much construction traffic happening there.
Oh, I can tell you, yeah.
I'm sure if you live near it, you see it all the time. Yes, I hear you.
Lots of clanging and beeping and everything, and a big cloud of dust. But okay.
Pickleball, there's a large pickleball club in that area, John Glenn.
Is that right?
So
Okay.
I would find out. I know that they have an organized league that plays there,
Okay.
and so probably maybe you can give community ed a call and find out.
Or we can
I'll
get
do-
your
I'll
contact
do
info.
that.
If you want us to reach out to you, we can find someone. I'll have community ed give you a call.
Okay.
Yep. Sure, absolutely.
All right.
I'll pull your tax statement.
All right.
I'll look at it and I'll get back to you with what the increases look like.
You're welcome to do that. Yeah. Yeah. Certainly. Okay.
I just want to say that I really appreciate you wanting to make use of the swimming pool there, because my own 3 children grew up in ISD 622, and they really took advantage of the Skyview Middle School pool. And they took swimming lessons through the Red Cross. I think it was through community ed. All I know is that I took them in the evening, and they learned how to swim. So I know that the Skyview community pool, Skyview is open to the community. So I'm pretty sure John Glenn will be too. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Yeah, it's nice to know that I'll be included. The chain link fence that goes around all the ball fields and everything, I don't know, are they going to open that up so there's access so people can go out there and just walk around out in the sunlight? Or they've been closed off for the last couple of years to the general public, not just simply because of the construction, but it was before that they started closing off the entries, or the exits and entries there.
I think from a safety standpoint, that's probably why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And I think obviously we want to give our public access to the fields, but we also want to keep people safe.
Yeah.
There's usually fences around ball fields, so that people don't come into the line of fire while people are playing or whatever. But
Right.
there is a plan in place. I can't tell you what it's going to look like, but there'll be a combination of open space and fencing.
It will open up a bit more, and then okay. I'm glad
Patrick,
to
I
hear
want to
that.
thank you for your comments. Will you do me a favor and give May your either like a phone number or whatever way you'd most want to be contacted, however you want to be contacted, will you let May know? And then somebody from the administration will reach out to you about the tax issue and any other questions you have?
Okay. Yeah, well, only one more thing comes to mind right now, for now, and that is this. Of course, when they put in the curbs and the gutters on Hazelwood Street, and that was needed, because kids were otherwise walking on the shoulders of the road. The plowing for that sidewalk isn't very timely, though, I can tell you. And Hazelwood has become a bit of a speedway. Now, if I don't know what kind of connection the school has with the Department of Law Enforcement, but it certainly would be appreciated that the speed limit would be enforced somewhat there. I cringe a little bit, particularly when I see kids, in the neighborhood. And but the Maplewood Speedway there, they're not drag racing, but they're going far in excess of the speed limit and have been for a long time.
Yeah.
So if you could put a bug in the ear of the law enforcement and let's see if they can monitor that a little bit and see that something's enforced there. The way I see it right now, too, there's a lot of people that have been leaving their cars out on the street all overnight, and I don't know if the ordinance has been lifted or something, but I understood that there was no overnight parking on the street, but
Okay.
that's another thing that's
Okay.
kind of overlooked. It's been used too much for that reason there.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for
Yep.
coming and sharing that. And if you will give your contact information to
Yep.
me,
I certainly
follow
will.
up. Thanks very much.
And thank you all.
Thank
All right,
you.
Good night. Okay, next on the agenda is the 2021 audit.
So again, I'm gonna invite Jackie to come on up here from MMKR. Jackie's been the lead on our audit.
Sorry, Randy, you know what? We should have had an opportunity to discuss the property tax
Okay.
levy
Yeah,
among the board members.
Perfect.
Sorry, Jackie. And maybe we don't have any further discussion because we already discussed it at a study session, but
oh, I'm willing to.
I just want to double check everyone. Do we have any discussion on the property tax levy? No. So,
So I'd like to welcome again Jackie from MMKR. She's been our lead here for a number of years, so we know her well. Before I turn it over, I'd like to say thank you to obviously you folks. As we move forward financially, it takes a village, and it starts with you guys. And I'd also like to thank Janet Dolman and Travis Byrne and Joe McCabe and Jody Schmidt and all the budget supervisors that worked really hard to help and maintain the finances of the district. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jackie here. So, welcome.
Well, thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having me tonight. As Randy said, my name is Jackie Hegel. I'm the partner in charge of the audit, and I'm in here tonight to present the audit results for the year ended June 30th, 2021. So the first slide I have here summarizes our role as an auditor. As an auditor, I am here to issue an opinion on that district financial statement. Since your district does receive more than $750,000 in federal awards, that's the threshold which triggers what's known as a separate single audit of those specific federal dollars. We also, as part of the audit, review the internal controls and compliance over the financial statement audit with that federal single audit and with the Minnesota state laws and regulations. So each year, the Office of the State Auditor releases what's known as the Legal Compliance Manual that has specific statutes in there that auditors are required to test for every year. To summarize the results over the district financial audit, we issued an unmodified, or what's known as a clean opinion, on the basic financial statements. For the internal control and compliance opinions on that financial audit, they had no material weaknesses or instances of noncompliance to report. For the audit results over that Minnesota legal compliance audit, I do have two comments here to note that I'll just walk through. The first is with a withholding affidavit. So just a reminder, as part of our testing, one of the two contracts that we tested, there was not the required withholding affidavit was not obtained prior to making final payment. So anytime you're working when you have a completed project, just a reminder that you need to obtain that withholding affidavit before you're releasing final payment to a contractor. The second comment here relates with contracting and bid laws. As part of our testing, we did have one contract that we noted that did not have the required 2 or more quotes obtained during the year. And then the last comment I have here was with insufficient collateral coverage. So for the district deposits that exceed that federal deposit insurance coverage, the district does need to obtain collateral or surety bonds that has a market value of at least 110% of that excess. And this was at one point during the year, the collateral did not cover that. For our audit opinions on that single audit of those federal awards, we issued a clean opinion on the CFA, or a clean opinion on that schedule of expenditures of federal awards. And we had no material weaknesses or instances of non-compliance to report in the current year. And I will just comment on this overall, when you don't have any findings in that federal area, that is really good results. And as many of you know, a lot local governments received a significant amount of federal funding this year. So we were auditing the coronavirus relief dollars and the education stabilization fund dollars. And anytime you get federal awards, there's always a significant amount of requirements that are attached to those that you have to, have your T's crossed, your I's dotted, making sure you're following all the procedures. So we did not note any compliance or internal control issues in that area. Moving on to some of the financial results. This first graph I have here summarizes the general fund financial position. It shows 10 years of history of that unrestricted fund balance in the general fund, the cash balance, and the expenditures. For the year ended June 30th, the general fund cash balance was about $41.5 million, which is an increase of about $5.7 million from the prior year. And then that total fund balance in the general fund ended the year at about $43.4 million, which was an increase of about $5 million from the prior year. This next table then takes that total general fund balance and it breaks it down into the various components and gives you a little bit of trend history, 5 years of history. So the total fund balance in that general fund was the $43.4 million, splitting it down into the various buckets there. The non-spendable fund balance in the general fund, that $205,000, that represents prepaid items. So at year end, the district has prepaid items already for the 2020 or 22 fiscal year. The restricted fund balance of about $14.9 million at year end. That's various restrictions with state statutes. So the district has about $10.4 million that's restricted for operating capital dollars. About $1.8 million is restricted for safe schools, and about $1.6 million restricted for medical assistance. There's about just under $3 million, that $2.8 million is in assigned fund balance. That represents a subsequent year's budget. So anytime the district approves a budget for the next fiscal year that it has deficit spending, so your expenditures are more than your revenue, you're required by GASB standards to put that in an assigned fund balance. And then that leaves the remaining $25.3 million in the unassigned fund balance, which represents 16.4% of the expenditures in that fund. This next graph here summarizes 10 years of history of the adjusted ADM and the pupil units the district served. For the 2021 year, the district closed the books with an estimated ADM of the 10,220. It's a decrease of about 340 ADMs, or about 3.2% from the prior year. A lot of the decrease you are seeing here, similar to some other districts in the metro, is just the impacts of COVID during the year and the impacts it did have on your student counts. This next slide here summarizes the general fund revenue. The bar graph shows a prior year actual compared to the current year actual, as well as a line for the budget. The total general fund revenues are about $160 million, which is about $1 million over the final budget and about $1.1 million more than prior year. When you're looking variance to budget, a couple areas, your state sources were about $1.4 million over budget, mainly in that state special education aid. And then that was offset by the federal sources were about $700,000 under budget. And that was just due to lower than anticipated education stabilization funds being recognized this year and carried over into the 22 fiscal year. Then when you're looking current year to prior year, that $1.1 million increase, majority of that is in the federal sources. We're up about $5.9 million with that coronavirus relief funds and the education stabilization funds. And then that was offset by your property taxes, are about $2.3 million lower than the prior year. And then revenues from other local sources were down about 2.2 million, just due to less fees and charges due to the pandemic. Similar graph here, just showing the general fund expenditures by the various object categories. Total general fund expenditures were about 2.9 million under the final budget and just about $1 million more than prior year. When you're looking variances to budget, it was spread across several of these object categories. Your salaries and benefits were about 2.3 million under budget due to some vacant positions. Purchase services were about 3 million under budget. That was mainly in tuition, utilities, and transportation costs being under budget. And then that was offset by the supplies and materials were over budget in the current year, mainly due to some technology purchases to support that distance and hybrid learning models. And then as I mentioned, the expenditures comparing current year to prior year were up about $1 million. The swings you're seeing there, salaries and benefits were increased about $5 million. That's due to contractual wage and benefit increases during the year. And then that was offset by your capital spending was down about 3.8 million just due to the timing of projects from one year to the next. This next graph here summarizes those other operating funds, that food service special revenue fund and your community service special revenue fund. As you can see from this graph, both funds had very positive operating results in the current year. The food service special revenue fund ended the year with a fund balance of about 3.3 million, and that was an increase of about 1.2 million from the prior year. So that total fund balance of about 3.3 million represents 53% of the expenditures in that fund. And then your community service fund, as I said, had a positive results as well. It increased about 425,000 and ended the year at about 3.2 million in fund balance. And then the last slide I have here, this summarizes what we call the district-wide statement of net position. So these are the full accrual financial statements at the front of your annual comprehensive financial report. It summarizes as a snapshot when you're including all the capital asset activity of the district, as well as all the long-term liabilities, any bonds the district has, any OPEB liabilities, any pension liabilities. The top part of that table starts with that fund balance of those governmental funds that you're used to seeing and talking about on a day-to-day basis. It shows the various adjustments for the capital assets, pensions, debt, to get to that net position. And then the bottom of that table shows the components of net position by the investment in your capital assets, the restricted dollars and unrestricted. So at year-end 21, the snapshot there shows that your overall net position of the district increased about 15.8 million. When you're looking at the bottom part of that table, I'll just comment a couple areas. That net investment in capital assets is up about 7.6 million. That's due to investment, into your buildings and the capital assets offset by debt during the year. And then the unrestricted net position's up about 5.7 million. A lot of that is due to the general fund's improved financial position, as well as the improved financial position in that internal service fund. So with that, I would open it up if you do have any questions.
For the one instance where we didn't get multiple quotes, was that a large transaction or was it relatively small?
Yeah, so the threshold of obtaining quotes is between 25,000 and 175,000. That's the threshold when you do have to obtain quotes. Couldn't tell you right offhand. We do have in our file the exact dollar amount, but it would be in that range there. The 25 to 1.
I'm going to guess it's a construction-related item because, we've had so many transactions that have happened, over the year because of so many construction projects. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to guess it had something to do with that. I'd be surprised if it was a, general fund situation. It's probably a construction situation. Yeah.
I believe it was something with John Glenn. So
yeah.
I think you're on the right.
And I got to be honest, I think for all the projects that we had and for all the money that we spent, like I said, 105 million last year. I mean, the change order, or not the change orders, but the pay apps and everything we had coming through. I mean, I think we did, an overall, really great job. So anyway, but But I know we take that pretty serious as far as getting quotes, but sometimes I think if it's especially in construction, if it's something that needs to happen like right now, then that sometimes might happen, you know. We don't want it to happen like that, but that might have been what happened, so.
You're welcome.
I do think that comment you made about the federal money and the clean finding and just the complexities around that and the complexities of the construction projects, I'm proud of the work that the district does with this. It's beyond, I don't understand it fully, but I'm glad somebody does and that they work for us still. So thanks a lot for that presentation. Any other questions, comments?
If I could just add a comment too, and for those in the viewing public who may be watching, our board did get a preview of this at our work session last week, so they had a chance to kind of dive in a little deeper as a preview to this audit finding. But I also always like to remind people that it's in state statute that school districts have to be audited by an external entity. So that's why there's always, every year, we have MMKR and there are others. You have an outside audit firm come in, and they spend weeks, days and weeks on site combing our books, combing our records to really ensure that taxpayer dollars are spent legally and appropriately, and that there's no mismanagement of funds or conflicts of interest that are happening. And so I think that's one of the things we always feel, we look forward to our audit every year because it's an opportunity to showcase. And I know under Randy's leadership in the department, you've got our other members of our finance team here as well. Those systems of checks and balances are so critically important. And I know as a superintendent, there's no way I could ever go take my district credit card and go buy something that's not appropriate without someone catching it, reporting it. And we do that we take that role very seriously. And so it's always a pleasure when we have audit results that come back so positive, recognizing all of those efforts that are in place because it's a lot of moving pieces. And I think as Randy mentioned, the sheer amount of construction that we've done has exponentially increased the number of transactions we've had to approve. And of course, although there was very few findings in this audit, we always take those findings and use those as opportunities to even tighten up something. If something came through too quickly, if it's going too quickly, then we need to slow it down. We find ways to improve those systems as well. So I just want to say thank you to the leadership of our finance department, who's really done a great job of keeping our audits excellent for a number of years in a row now. We're really proud of that.
Just, if I can say one more thing, just with the 3 findings on the Minnesota compliance of laws, as Caleb mentioned with the quotes, we had 3 findings. The other finding was the required IC 134, which is actually a form that the contractor must submit to the Department of Revenue. And normally we have to have a copy of that before we actually give them their final payment. So basically the onus, it's kind of funny because the onus is on us to make sure that the contractor is reporting all their revenue that they're receiving from us, to the state of Minnesota. So it's kind of weird. It's a tax-related thing. I always look at it as going, yeah, okay, so you're putting pressure on us to make sure that we have those forms so that the contractor is actually sending the money to the state of Minnesota. They're not shirking on their taxes. And then this collateral one, this is very interesting, where everybody's heard of FDIC insurance, the federal deposit insurance. And so, again, when you're dealing with millions and millions and millions of dollars in draws for construction projects and everything, this is, it's quite unusual, but usually, the bank keeps tabs of that, and they're the ones that actually let us know that, when we let them know, they're supposed to seek out collateral, not us. So just, again, with all the transactions, millions of dollars we're doing on construction, I guess it's not surprising that, maybe that happened. So.
Thanks a lot, Jackie.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. All right, so next on our agenda is the superintendent's report.
Is that something you can refresh? Oh, perfect, excellent. No, I don't think it's up, I don't think it's refreshed. Because I added a slide to the beginning of it. Oops. There we go, that's what I want to get to. All right. All right, Madam Chair, Director of the Board, Directors of the Board, very pleased to be here tonight. Sorry, I've been having a little sneezing fit over there, trying to clear my breathing path here. So, as promised, I've been meaning to do a COVID update again, as I've been doing many past months behind us. But I promised you tonight an enrollment, just a quick update. You will get an official enrollment update in January as part of our budget planning when we talk about those budget assumptions for the coming year. But when we were discussing this at our work session last week, I promised you kind of a sneak peek at what our data is looking like for enrollment right now, just so you can kind of wrap your head around it a little bit. So in your board packets, there's a document here that shows it's a lot more detail, a lot of detail in here about not only the enrollment trends right now for this year compared to last year, but it does also include a section that has class sizes on it. So you can look at that. It's in your board packet. I think the key takeaway that I wanted to share with you this evening is just one slide I just threw in. And this is not in your board packet because the information is in the bigger document, but I thought for the purposes of tonight, I just wanted to kind of make it real simple. We have talked in the past about how when you build your budget projections for the following school year, the very first piece of the puzzle is what does your enrollment look like? As you know, state funding is tied to your enrollment. And we knew that, we also know that funding for next school year, and I mean the 22-23 school year, is dependent on the enrollment that we have in our schools this school year, right? And so I just took a point in time and gave you an opportunity to see. So at the very bottom row here, that's actually the enrollment that was just looked at this past end of November. And I want you to understand that. So that enrollment count is going to be a predictor of our funding for the 22-23 school year. Something to know about enrollment, though, it's not a point in time. It's a measure of your average daily attendance all year. And so it's not like that point in time is our enrollment and it's set in stone for the following school year, but we'll be watching this all year. But what I decided to do for tonight is just to give you a point in time over the last 3 years. What you can see is November 2019, we had no idea the pandemic was coming around the corner. And by the way, this is our K-12 enrollment. If you look at the sheet that's in your board packet, it'll give you a look at some of those other measures of programs and things like that. But what I wanted you to know is just the K-12 numbers. We were at 10,183 that fall of 19. The fall of 2020, you can see we had dropped down quite a bit, over 200 by then. What's interesting to note is that our numbers actually dropped, the average for the whole school year dropped even more than that for last school year. But I just wanted to give you that point in time because we have to see how the whole year plays out. As of November this year, you can see that point in time, end of November, we have definitely come back from where we were a year ago. We are not yet where we were in that fall of 19. But that enrollment number, we're going to watch it the whole school year because it's going to be the average of those attendance days throughout the school year. So if your enrollment drops in January, that average is in as well. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. But I just wanted to give you just a pulse check, a place in time. The column to the right is something we've been talking a lot about because, as you know, our compensatory education funding is tied to your free and reduced percentage, right? And as well as your Title I funding, which is a federal fund. And if you look back to our free and reduced count from that fall of 19, it's actually that account is based on students who are enrolled on October 1st and have until December to get their free and reduced or those lunch applications we talked quite a bit about at the board, at the work session. They have until, in this case, tomorrow, the 15th of December, to get those forms turned in for us to be able to count that data. In December of 2019, we were at 47% of our student enrollment qualifying for free and reduced. And if you look at last year, that number dropped dramatically, that point in time in December. We don't believe that the socioeconomic levels of our families changed that dramatically, but as we talked about earlier, when free meals are provided per the federal government during the pandemic, there was less incentive for families to turn those forms in because already they were qualified. Everybody was getting free meals. So the one challenge, and we've talked about this before, is that in our state, our compensatory dollars are tied to that form. We would love to see some different options considered for how you might gauge socioeconomic needs of our families. But that number dropped, and that drop that you see from that 47% that 2019 to that 36% the following year came to the tune of about a loss of about $5 million in our funding this current school year, which we're in right now. That $5 million, as we mentioned, we're making up for that through that COVID relief funding that came from the federal government this year, one-time funding, and it's allowed us to keep staff. We wanted to make sure we had an opportunity this year to try to get a better accurate count again. So a lot of effort has gone in this year to helping make sure, a lot of outreach, principals and our liaisons and others reaching out to families to try to get some communication about why, even though your child may be getting free meals this year, this is a document that's important for our school district to gauge the needs of our communities and ensure that our schools get the funding that is due to our students to support and serve them for those different areas. And as you can see, as of right now, and we still have till tomorrow, we're actually back up not only above where we were last year, but above where we were the previous year by just a percentage point. So, which is wonderful news. Our finance team and I have been talking about that, and we were really pleased to see that. Per Travis's words, Travis. Oh, I guess he's gone now that the audit report said. We were just talking about this a couple days ago that we've come back now, so we're on track to recoup that loss in compensatory funding that we had for this school year. So kudos to our principals and teachers who during parent-teacher conferences and our homeschool liaisons and interpreters who really helped get that message with our families to make sure we were at least counting the needs that we actually do have. So we're very pleased about that. And that the full details of our current enrollment are in your board packet. I just wanted to pull out those couple of talking points for you, and that's what this is about. But before I move on to COVID updates, other questions you may have about enrollment?
I just want to do teacher voice really loud and not turn on a mic. I just wanted to make sure I got that again. So Travis is reporting that we're getting in the surveys back with the vast majority of the data that we need on the free reduced lunch. That's good news.
Yeah, actually, we've gotten, the vast majority of families have turned in those forms, even though their children are receiving free, all children, regardless of income levels of the family, are receiving free meals this year. And that's per the federal government because of the pandemic. And that's not expected to continue after this school year. But because of that, it was a real challenge last year, and I think one of the things, because that count is taken October 1st, and then you have that little bit of time, and we were in the middle of just understanding the pandemic at that time, and I don't think, we were as on top of helping families see that, hey, turn these in anyway, even though your child's going to qualify for free and reduced lunch. And quite frankly, when we did our budget assumptions last year, you can look back at them, we really thought the state was going to hold districts harmless because of that exact factor with those lunch forms. But the wonderful news is we've worked really hard, and I mean week by week by week, looking at the numbers to make sure families, we get the best accurate count we can, and we've definitely done it. We're back on track, which is great.
Yeah, you're right when you say kudos to the people that are really trying to get that count.
Absolutely. Yep. It's been a part of every meeting we've had with principals and other groups as well.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for the update, and this is really informative. And aside from the socioeconomic status, demographic information, do you have any other K-12 enrollment update demographics as far as race? Specifically, like, are the kids that are living out our district white students that have the means to go to public schools, or maybe be homeschooled, or do you have any other demographic information that we can actually learn from about the students that are leaving the district?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Director Natardi. We have, so for the purposes of tonight, we didn't pull that data tonight, but we absolutely have that data. In fact, the most recent glimpse in terms of overall who our students are is what was presented along with that achievement information from our, I think it was our November board meeting, right, when Amy Lochner was here, what our demographics look like as a school district this year. So that's by race, socioeconomic status in that regard. If you are interested in a deeper dive session around the demographics that we can pull together regarding who lives here and open enrolls elsewhere, that would be a report we'd have to pull together, but it's definitely stuff we have access to. Yep, for sure. In this particular discussion, we didn't pull that information because what we're looking at for planning for funding is just the total number of students. But we can definitely, and that's a really interesting piece to look at, particularly as we look at where we've progressed through this pandemic. And, one of the things that's really important is finding out, and we did a survey of our community probably, how many years ago, Josh? Maybe 4 years ago, 3 or 4, where we looked at of the families that choose to leave our school district, who are they and why do they choose to leave our school district? And so we actually did a very thorough study of that a few years back. We haven't commissioned another study of that most recently because we were in the mix of the pandemic, but it's certainly a question worth asking. And I think particularly as we look at working on our strategic plan, we want to refresh that strategic plan because it's already, strategic plans typically last for 3 to 5 years, and we're now at the 5-year mark. In fact, right now we're at the 5-year mark, and we definitely this spring want to be looking at refreshing our strategic plan. In fact, in January, I'm at the work session, I'm planning to bring a little timeline of some ideas for that. And I think that's a great opportunity for us to do another study like that, especially because we're thinking of the next 3 to 5 years. So that's a great request. We'll definitely take that back to the team to talk about. Other questions related to enrollment? Yes.
I just wanted to say that in relation to that form, that troublesome form, there was an effort to hold districts harmless.
I know. Oh, yes.
But we did not prevail.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was sad. And, if there were some legislation that you and others, could propose, we could certainly give it another shot as far as, like you say, finding another way to get that socioeconomic data without that form, which I'm gathering from discussions at the study session is not as easy as I thought it was to fill out. So, so at any rate, I'll keep that in mind. Maybe that's a worthy discussion for you and your peers.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, and it's actually an item that's been proposed for our legislative platform through our professional organizations. I know for sure through AMSD, I believe through MASA. Although they're still being finalized. I haven't seen the MSBA one most recent yet to see, but I know that's been in our metro area school districts, that's been a big interest for us, for sure. And of course, the goal is just to get the most accurate data we can, because when that funding comes to your school district, you can better serve our students, right? I mean, that funding goes to provide intervention teachers and class size reduction and nurses and school social workers and all those things that help provide a high quality education. So our goal is always to make sure we just get the most accurate data so that we get funded the most accurate way possible to serve our students. So we'll definitely continue to advocate for that.
So over the last year, when we worried a lot about our lost enrollment because of COVID, and we didn't understand exactly like where did everybody go? Did they go to homeschool or to different districts or private schools or whatever? I I feel like the number we lost, I don't know the number we lost. I can't remember offhand, but it,
300 and something.
Yep.
okay, so a bit more than what this is showing.
Yeah, this is one point in time, is not the average of the school year.
Okay, so 350. And so then, but based on the 10,000 for November 2021, we probably got back 150 maybe, I don't know.
Right, and I think that's a great question. That's why I picked the date of the previous 2 years of just this same time stamp, because we won't know till the end of this school year, after we see what our average attendance is for the school year, what our average attendance data will show for the whole school year. And so because we don't have that data yet for this current school year that we're in, because we haven't lived out the school year yet, I just picked a point in time that would be comparable. But yeah, the actual number in terms of the average daily membership was well over 300, closer to 350 at least. And I think that's what this doesn't show, because it's a point in time. Where this is different, the free and reduced count is about that point in time. That is when the count is taken. So that data now is accurate, because that's actually this point in time. Of course, it's got to get, cross-checked and stuff, but so that's a pretty reliable number right now, the free and reduced. The enrollment count is going to be an average of the whole school year, so we keep an eye on that throughout the whole year as well.
And maybe, so if we're, maybe not, but maybe we're still missing 200 of those students, right? And, when the school year ends, maybe we'll still be down 200, maybe we won't. But if we wanted to understand where the students who left went, we'd have to do a study. That would be
correct, because some of what the loss is that they don't enroll in our district, right? So it's that cohort number from 1 year. So one of the biggest challenges right now, for example, is Josh and I have been working a lot on this lately, and Josh and Troy have been working closely on kindergartners. How many kindergartners will we have next year? Well, Randy could tell you, they've always looked at trend data, right? Birth rates combined with trend data, and there's a formula for looking at over time. What we're living right now is this unknown because of the pandemic, right? So will trend data be an accurate prediction of future data? We don't quite know when we're in this pandemic world that we're in. And so we're fairly confident we can predict how many third graders we're going to have next year based on how many second graders we have this year. So those really tricky years to predict are your kindergartners that are coming in, and then also that transition year. So of our sixth graders for next year, when you have a transition from elementary school to a middle, or from middle to high school, that's where you gain and lose students. Traditionally, and this is overall of time, you traditionally lose more students at middle school. People stay with our school through elementary, and then they go elsewhere for middle, but then they come back to high school in our district. And so we tend to see a dip in enrollment in middle school. That's been the trend. What we don't know is, how is the pandemic going to affect that? And then the building renovations, is that going to be more of a draw as we kind of look at programming offerings that we're trying to work on as well? So.
But I was going to get to that, similar to Charlotte's question. I wonder if, without doing a study, if we could look at demographic data from 2021 to 2023 to give us an idea of who left, even if it's not a perfect measure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Might be interesting.
Absolutely.
And then I know that down the road with our construction and everything, and with all of the housing going up in the communities, that we're hoping long-term for enrollment growth as well, which I guess is just a separate topic, but.
Yeah, we can definitely work on that, absolutely.
Yeah, and speaking about enrollment growth, I want to just clarify that your data includes the online school or not?
This does include our online school, great question. Yep, yeah. It does. And so
because we gained students in online school.
Yeah, although the majority of those students in our online school came from our brick and mortar schools. The majority came from our own schools that went in there, although we do have about 100 students that came from outside the district. In the report that's in your packet, you'll see there's a place that tells you the regular programs and then 622 online. You'll see that right now there's 508 students in 622 online. And we believe that, the majority of those students, well, we know the majority of those students came from, Carver and Castle and Weaver and all our own schools, so they aren't new students, but there are about 100 of them who are new students to us. One of the things about enrollment too, and I think this is part of what we want to make sure when we put together a report, because we can do a whole session just looking at this too, because I think it's important, especially as we try to plan for the future, where we could be losing, 1,500 students, we can gain a different 900 students. So the net loss is 600, but the total change is more students than just 900, what I'm saying, or 600 or whatever. I think, but that'll be part of our report. And when we did it in the past, we kind of were clear about how many were new and those who came from new to joining us and those who left. So you got to measure the incoming and the outgoing to get the total number. But I think we can definitely do that and take a look at the demographic data on that as well. And the ages of those students too. Yeah, please, go right ahead.
So when a student leaves the district, we have a form that the schools fill out called the Change of Student Enrollment, the COSI form. That information we can find out who the student is and if they tell us where they're going. Oftentimes we get a records request from the other district that they're going to. That way we can keep track of where they're going. But oftentimes if they're leaving for a private school or for being homeschooled, they don't have to tell us that. So if they're leaving for a public school or a public charter school, we would have that information on where they're attending if they leave here based on the records request form that we get or the COSI that the schools fill out.
And to add to what Josh is saying, and if they live here but they never enrolled here, we also wouldn't have data on where they are necessarily either, because they live here but they never, once they come into our schools and leave, if we get a record request then we can know where they went. But if they just never enrolled here, then that's also a trickier piece of data to have. But
Maybe this is a question for Josh. Several times a day, I drive on McKnight Road and pass this enormous expansion in housing, hundreds and hundreds of units. Are we looking at that, and where are those students, if they do indeed bring students there to live, where are they going to go to school?
We do tend to pay attention. Oftentimes, when we meet with our city folks, they tell us kind of where the developments are happening. I can check for certain exactly which one you're talking about, but I know that the big one that we've been waiting for since I've been here for now, this is my 5th year here. We're waiting for the one in Oakdale. That's finally online, and that is in the Castle attendance zone, the old, I-Mation area over in Oakdale. And so that one is in the Castle zone, and we intentionally left enrollment at Castle when we did boundary changes last spring because we're hoping and anticipating we're going to get some students that move into that area. But I can verify it and get back to you, Nancy, on the McKnight area.
to be, because there's also there's the northern part of McKnight, and then in South Maplewood on McKnight, there's also plans for another development there too. Yeah. That's the one in North St. Paul. Yeah, that North St. Paul Maplewood border. Yeah. Right by our transportation.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is, and if you remember, there's definitely some townhomes there, and there'll be some families that move in. But when we think back to our when we had Hazel here doing our enrollment report, our enrollment study, we get very few students coming from townhomes. We majority get students that come from single family housing. When they're townhomes or apartments, we tend to get very few students out of those buildings. So we're not anticipating in that area to get that many students, but that is definitely up over by where the Quick Trip is going in and stuff like that. Yep, or went in. Yeah, for sure.
And there's also some apartments that have been developed in that part of Woodbury, probably where Charlotte near you, near Woodbury Lakes. I don't know. We're looking to see what kind of families are going to move into there. If it's going to be, families with children, and so every one of these developments, we try to stay in communication with the city about what they're anticipating for there. So, and I know when Hazel did our huge demographic study that you all got a report on last November, a year ago, all of that was included in that. But of course, things change from year to year. So.
So my question is, it's my assumption without any facts that the social economic needs of that 48% identified now in December of 2021, the socioeconomic needs might be more than the socioeconomic needs of that 47% in December of 2019. My assumption being that the poor get poorer and have less opportunities to recover after things like the COVID, job loss, all those sorts of things. Is there a way, when we identify our free and reduced population, is there a way to go deeper into that information to determine if the actual social economic needs of those impacted families and students are greater and deserve some additional attention somewhere from us?
You know, it's self-reported by families. I guess the one other way I'm thinking of would be to work with our demographers too, to cross-reference what the census data is showing us for the city. But unless we kind of are dependent on what families are telling us, right? And that gets to the same point we were just talking about, Nancy bringing up, that if our only measure is that lunch form, it doesn't always give us the whole story. The other idea is we would think, I would think that it might be higher given the pandemic. The other piece, which is really worth the study that Charlotte's recommending we dig again, is because perhaps there's families who are not low income who are opting to stay in our school district too. And that's the part we have to do periodically. We have to go out and do some sort of a study again to try to get more accurate data. That's a really hard one though, because we don't, it's what families report to us.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off what he just said, that we all know that the holidays are coming and the students are receiving free meals. So what are we doing to continue to provide nutrition services to those students that probably are not going to have meals? Because that information will be pertinent to continue providing them services.
Great question. And actually, that's one of the reasons why we even when our number dropped last year, we knew the need was still great based on some of the needs. So every single school that we have in our district actually has some sort of food shelf program. And we're very proud of that. We spent a lot of time building those up in every site so that we put together the backpack food programs, especially before a winter break, things like that. So we have, and what we found is that the participation is very high, and some sites more than others, as you might guess. We already know from the data that Webster Elementary is our highest poverty school, and it obviously has probably the greatest participation for that kind of a program. But we have that program in all of our schools, and the participation is very ongoing and regular. We have programs for parents and adults to come and get things home. We have programs that send things home with kids in the backpack if the parents can't get to us. We have programs that allow staff to drive the food out to families. A lot of our staff will volunteer after that. And what's really awesome too is in our middles and our high schools, we actually have these each school calls it a little something different, but it's basically a free school store. And it includes toiletries, shampoo, deodorant, things like even just socks and underwear. Those are really important items. So it's not just boots and jackets, but it's also some of those day-to-day things. And what's great is that our secondary schools have these unlocked spaces where students can go and take what they need without having to talk to somebody about it. And we found that to be very successful because it allows people to kind of keep their dignity and get what they need and not have to tell everybody that they have that need. So that's been another great opportunity as well. So, that would be something if I think it's probably been a while since we've done a board report about that, but we certainly could bring, if that's another thing you're interested in, we certainly could bring together a little presentation about what that looks like, maybe some photographs of these programs in our schools so you can kind of see what they look like, maybe a slideshow of how that works in each of our buildings. I think that might be helpful too, for sure.
Just so you know, in the construction of our new schools and our remodeling, we set that up in each of our buildings. So that's already been designated as a space. So as part of the planning process.
I remember when we were touring John Glenn when it was first being done, and I'm like, what? I'm looking on the new map. I'm like, what's the John Glenn launch pad? Like, are we launching rockets? And they're like, no, that's our food shelf in our free store. I was like, why John? Oh, John Glenn, the astronaut. And I was like, why are we calling it the John Glenn launch pad? I was like, oh, right. But yeah, everybody's got some name specific to their building, but yeah, they're in the building designs for every site, which is wonderful too. And quite frankly, our staff, have been amazing, staying after school and, doing the grocery bag pickup, and staff who work here at the District Ed Center going out and helping out and volunteering to load cars and deliver food and things, so that's been a really nice thing. We'll have to highlight a story about that and get some pictures, especially this coming week, because they're going to be, a lot of that happens. We know before breaks that's a really important time to make sure we help families have what they need, because breaks can be a long time. Food is school's a very important place for kids to be, especially when you think about 48% of our students at the minimum, having some economic needs.
Yeah, I think it would be great to do a report on that at John Glenn. I know they call it the community market. They have it, I think, on
okay.
Tuesdays.
In the earlier version, it was called the launch pad, but yeah.
Oh, maybe the future one is called, I don't really know.
Okay, yeah.
No, I don't know, but they send us out. Yeah. They send us out texts, because I'm a John Glenn parent. They send us out text message reminders of it. And there's so many times that students in the schools are getting food. Like after school, before they go to sports, they have the opportunity to go to the cafeteria, which I thought was really interesting. And right now my kid at John Glenn is doing sports where after school they might have a meet, and then the school makes sure that the kids all get fed before they spend hours there. So there's lots of things like that happening.
And I'll be honest, Paula Polkamp, our food service supervisor, really, really goes out of her way. If there's a grant or there's a program that we can get access to, she goes for it. Even if it's extra work to go for it, we go for it. She does an amazing job. And then on top of that, individual sites, social workers, principals, teachers have built all kinds of connections. We have a whole web of different, food shelf programs that we're connected to.
I'm getting some live updates. Like Castle has at least 80 families coming tomorrow for their food shelf. Webster's doing theirs on Thursday, so we'll be out getting photos from our department.
Yeah, that'll be great. In fact, that might be a good update to do right away in January, at our board meeting in January. Then we can share some of those photos with you, because like I said, this is a week that's very busy in that realm before the break. Great question.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, just again, for the people who don't currently have kids in the school district, I think you might be surprised at the opportunities to get food to the kids. Right?
And or if you had students in the school district before, like my kids are out of school now, right? It's changed in the last 5 years, what we've been able to find and build connections to. So it's constantly growing and improving. So I think it's just great to kind of get those updates periodically too.
All right, so it looks like a food update and an enrollment
Food shelf
update
and
someday.
yeah, we'll do an update on that for sure. That'll be great.
All right, should we move on to the COVID update?
Yeah, I'm just trying to do, as you know, a regular update on our COVID situation. I am so thrilled. The board packet that you get, we put it together, May and I, on Friday. But I went in today and updated this slide. So the one that you got on Friday has been updated with today's numbers. And for the first time in forever, do you see that number starting to go down? I'm like, oh my goodness, thank goodness, because it's just been up and up and up. And so if you look at, on this slide, you can see not only this is what, the data has looked like this fall, but these purple are what is predicted over the next coming week ahead. So really thrilled to see that, and I think that's due to a real increase in vaccination rates for sure. That's Washington County and this is Ramsey County. Both are we finally are turning a corner. Let's hope we can keep that corner turned. So I just want to start with that, of course. Our COVID dashboard, just to let you know, our team is now updating it on the Wednesday of each week for the previous week. So Today's Tuesday, so it'll be updated tomorrow morning for last week's data. The reason is because we used to update it on Monday, but we find that so much data comes in on a Monday morning that our nurses and contact tracers are so busy they can't get the data accurate. So they look back they try to update it on Wednesdays now. So you can keep checking that. That's on our district website as well. We're continuing to host vaccination clinics with all these different community partners, so Ramsey County and Cub Pharmacy, and we had one today in this building at the DEC just this afternoon, and then I know Webster, we just had one this week as well for young kids, but we're also offering opportunities for people to get their first or second dose also who are not in the young kid group too. So continuing with that. We talked about this at our study session last week, but I just want to reiterate that, we are not making the decision to just shut everything down. We're trying to keep school open for all the reasons we just discussed right here. And so, but that being said, we have had to close classrooms or grade levels periodically and occasionally whole schools. So we're trying to keep that moving forward. One of the things I wanted to talk about, we discussed the issue, and I noticed that Charlotte brought this up to see what the students were saying about it as well, if they were talking about the whole winter break thing. And actually, I had a Zoom last night with several of the girls, and Stephanie was part of that group, talking about this issue just to hear what they're hearing too. And one of the things is, they hear stories like, well, this other district is going to have a longer winter break because everybody needs a break. But what the media doesn't always tell people is that you have to make those days up, right? In order to get state funding, you have to meet the minimum requirements of days. And so you can't just say we're not having school. You have to you're either going to remote learning or you're going to make up those days. And every district that you hear about in the news has a different plan because I've spoken to each one of them to see what their plans are. And so our goal has been to try to just keep going if we can. But I have said this, if our attendance of staff ever gets too low where we can't stay open, and this has been a question that's been coming up among staff because some staff have said, well, I live in Osseo or I live in Apple Valley or I live in St. Paul and there's a day that these kids aren't going to have school and I need daycare and it's going to be a challenge for me. We're trying to keep an eye on that. So one of the ways we do that, I'm sorry, I've shared this with you previously as well, so I won't go into that again, but it's always a good reflection. So if you ever want to know, if a classroom goes to remote learning, what does the day look like? What's the plan and the procedure for that? So I just included that, but you, again, have seen this before, but this is for elementary and for secondary. If they do have to move to remote learning, those are kind of the expectations that go with that. Attendance, though. So I wanted to just give you a glimpse. We use a program called Frontline, and we look at our attendance, and trust me, some of us, we run it every night and every morning first thing, and we look at what's the day going to look like and how bad is it. So this just gives you a look at this week. So as you see, and I pulled this data earlier today, right? So this is the data. Monday and Tuesday have already happened, right? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a week ahead of myself. This week, I'm sorry. I probably labeled that one miss. So this is this current week. We are Tuesday, right? So you can see today we had 70 filled absences where we had substitutes. We had 38 absences that were unfilled, and we have 24 that had no sub-required. Now, this report does include all positions, paraprofessionals, nurses, teachers. I can run a separate report, but all are so important, I wanted to include them all. What you see for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are the absences that have been entered so far, right? Doesn't mean overnight tonight, we may see something else added for Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, but these are the numbers we have right now looking ahead. This slide deck is next week. Now, we don't have school Thursday or Friday. That's why there's no absences, no sub needed. There's no absences listed there. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday so far are looking pretty good. And quite honestly, we've been saying, well, if other schools are going to change their dates around, maybe we'll have even more substitute access for next week if somebody has to be gone because the other districts won't need, because we all pull from the same pool, right? So we're watching this number very closely, and we're going to keep an eye on it. We keep an eye on it late at night and really early in the morning, and we try to keep an eye on. Our goal is not to surprise any families though and say, oh, it's 6 a.m., we're closing today because we don't have staff. We're hopeful that we can see some data trends ahead of time enough so that we can be able to make decisions about that. But I just want you to know what we're looking at. And there's other ways you can run these numbers, but I just want you to know that that's something we're keeping a close eye on as well. And that's kind of my COVID update for right now. Do you have questions about that? Yes.
This is sort of related to COVID, I guess. There was a really troubling story on Minnesota Public Radio today about a Roseville principal who resigned from the board of the Pelsby board, the public.
Oh yeah, sure.
Was it the professional
Yep.
employee
Employee licensing board. Mhm.
And he's a former Minnesota Teacher of the Year and so on. And anyway, he said that because of masking questions, people questioning his district's masking policy, he's received really horrific threats to his life. And detailed them, and it was just amazing. I mean, people threatening to burn him at the stake and so on. Did anyone hear that story? You heard it?
I didn't hear
Yeah.
that one today yet.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
There'll probably be something in the news about it
Oh,
tomorrow.
I'm sure, yeah.
Anyway, have we had that kind of experience? Have our principals had to endure that kind of? I mean, I know people, are anxious about the pandemic. There's differences of opinions about mitigation, but have they had to endure that kind? Because I just think it should be illegal to threaten the life of a principal.
Oh,
it
I
just
agree.
should be illegal.
One of the things, I hear you, and I haven't heard that news story, but, decisions like the masking decision, I'll tell you, were really, really rough back in August when we first made those decisions. And Josh I could tell you, we very intentionally, when we put out those announcements to our community, sent them from me and not from each individual principal, because, they're on the front lines, and I'd rather they not individually have to face those. So for that reason, that anger came back to us in the district. No, I wouldn't say I've had anyone threaten my life. We've had some pretty absurd, screaming voicemail messages, and that was at the beginning of the year before Kim had even retired. But one thing, and I think we talked about this before, one thing we tried to do is, even if they didn't tell us to call them back and leave a number, if there was a caller ID number, I called them anyway and just said, hey, let's talk about that. And I think, helping people to know that, how much is Anthony Fauci paying you? And, helping people understand that our decisions are made based on our local data, the data we just looked at. It's not what the CDC or political parties are telling us. It's based on what our Washington County and our Ramsey County public health officials are telling us, and what our data says in our cities. And when I don't know, for all the conversations we had with people, that really helped. I mean, I think it helped people just to know that, we aren't just pawns we're making decisions based on our own local data. But the heat was very high when we first made that decision. Now, one of the things that's happening right now, my nose is still dripping. One of the things that's happening right now is there are a lot of conversations among superintendents about when to remove those mask requirements, right? And so that's something we're constantly talking about. And you'll notice that I tend to use the word mask requirement, not mask mandate. For some reason, mandate sounds a little more inflammatory, even though it kind of means the same thing. We say our mask requirement. We try to find language that's less provoking of emotional responses. But there are conversations among our groups of superintendents right now about, so how long do we keep the mask requirement going, right? And so, our response has been, let's get the data down out of that red zone before we even start to talk about that. We can remove a mask requirement quickly, but I'd hate to announce it too soon and then have the data change, and then you're trying to walk that back. So, we want to see the vaccinations continue to increase and the data to get better, but And I didn't hear that story, so I'm not sure if that was part of where that was coming from in this current time right now in December, because maybe they're having those conversations, but I have not heard that from Roseville yet, so. It's interesting, though. People are coming out sideways this year. You know, it's a hard year.
It is a hard year, and but administrators, teachers should not have to put
No.
up with threats to their lives. This is just over the top, and it's illegal to threaten public officials, and maybe we should change the law to include teachers and principals. I don't know. I mean but this is just. If this is happening, I'm glad it's not happening in our district. I'd like to know about it if it is, but
Not to that extent. We have had some very hostile responses, particularly at the beginning of the year. One of the concerns we had at the beginning of the year when we had to make those decisions was our bus drivers. So they go pick up students, and it's not just state, it's federal guidelines. You can't get on a school bus without a mask, right? Can't get on a public bus or an airplane either. And early on, some of our biggest concerns were for our bus drivers, who had to be the very, very front line of that first wave of students getting on the bus, and if there were parents who disagreed with that. And so we tried to do a lot of front loading of that, and of course making sure there's plenty of disposable masks, but also helping drivers. Don't fight that on the scene out there by yourself at a bus stop. We'll take care of it. It's not something that happens very often, but if ever there's a real concern, if it's an actual threat. And I'm not saying specific to masking, but over the years we have had things like that happen in our schools, and we've made police reports. We also have the ability to do a no trespass order, and we don't need police or court order to do that. So we have jurisdiction of our school buildings and our properties. So if we ever feel like someone is really unsafe, we have that authority to issue a no trespass notice to someone, and then and we always work with our attorney to make sure that we're clear about that. And it's not forever, but we have had occasionally situations like that.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you, Christine. Next, we have our action items. The first is the business office and the acknowledgement of contributions, and that's Julia.
Minnesota State Statute 123B.02 permits school boards to receive for the benefit of the district bequests, donations, or gifts for any proper purpose and apply the same to the purpose designated. In that behalf, the board may act as trustee of any trust created for the benefit of the district and the benefit of the pupils thereof. Therefore, the Director of Business Services recommends the following resolution. Be it resolved by the School Board of the Independent School District number 622 that the school board accept with appreciation the following contributions and permit their use as designated by the donors. Betty Mott, $50, Meals on Wheels. David and Mary Burdick, $60, Meals on Wheels. Andras Built, LLC, $100, Meals on Wheels. Ruth Paisley, $50, Meals on Wheels. Hans and Becky Nevey, $50, Meals on Wheels. Marilyn and Bruce Fisher, $20, Meals on Wheels. Lori Rothmund, $50, Meals on Wheels. Walter and Mary Lindeman, $100, Meals on Wheels. Russell and Lynn Howe, $50, Meals on Wheels. Jim and Therese Falkenbridge, $100, Meals on Wheels. Laurel Carnes, $50, Meals on Wheels. Len and Mary Jo Hassel, $50, Meals on Wheels. Brian Nearson, KB Service Company, $300, Meals on Wheels. Scott Wazeluk, $100, Meals on Wheels. Mary Jones, $20, Meals on Wheels. Diane Crenshaw, $50, Meals on Wheels. Tim McCain, Graphic Options, $20, Meals on Wheels. Kristen Nelson, $1,000, Meals on Wheels. Bernice Baker, $50, Meals on Wheels. Sean and Susan McMahon, $100, Meals on Wheels. Michael and Joan Stallman, $50, Meals on Wheels. Carol Lynn, $20, Meals on Wheels. Duke and Amy Colburn, $250, Meals on Wheels. Hy-Vee, disinfectant wipes to Weaver Elementary. Maplewood Oakdale Lions Club, 36 pairs of mittens to Richardson Elementary. Carol Start, Eastside Ministries, 23 sets of hats, mittens, and scarves to Richardson Elementary. North Haven Church, school supplies, books, and gloves to Richardson Elementary. Mike Briggs, industrial plastic scraps to Tartan Robotics Program. Sonia Moreno, boots, shoes, snow pants, and jackets to Castle Elementary. Rebecca Speed, Farmers Insurance Agency, 50 sets of headphones to Castle Elementary. Eastside Ministries, 22 sets of hats, mittens, gloves, and scarves to Castle Elementary. Maplewood Oakdale Lions Club, 28 pairs of mittens to Castle Elementary. Hy-Vee Grocery Store, disinfectant wipes to Richardson Elementary. Maplewood Oakdale Lions Club, 36 pairs of mittens, Webster Elementary. This brings the total fiscal 2021-2022 monetary contributions to $28,546.20.
All right. Thank you, Julia. Julia, do you want to move for approval?
So moved.
Okay, and can I get a second? Second by Anders. Sorry. All in favor say aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. So that is approved, and thank you so much to all those donors. Next on our agenda, we have the combined polling places. Are you going to speak to that, Randy?
Yeah, sure. Again, this is probably our third or fourth year of doing this. State legislation changed 4 or 5 years ago, requesting school districts to establish their polling places and their combined polling places every December. This was a suggestion made by the Office of the Secretary of State to make it more voter friendly so that voters, kind of knew ahead of time, where their polling places were going to be. Because we do this doesn't mean we're going to run a special election, but it's just kind of a requirement of state law. So it's just something that we continue to do according to statute on a yearly basis in December.
All right, thank you. Okay, I'm going to read the resolution. I'm going to read part of the resolution, and then it's very long, and the rest of it can be accessed online on the district website or from the business office. So be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 622 as follows. Number 1, pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 205A.11, the precincts and polling places for school district elections are those precincts or parts of precincts located within the boundaries of the school district, which have been established by the cities or towns located in whole or in part within the school district. The board hereby confirms those precincts and polling places so established by those municipalities. So again, this is available, the full resolution is available online or from the business office. Can I get a motion and a second to approve?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Anderson. Second. Second by Natardi. Any discussion on this? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. And sorry, is this the one that's roll call vote? Okay, so this is a roll call vote, so may.
Steve Hunt. Aye. Julia Martins.
Aye.
Charlotte Natardi. Aye. Nancy Livingston. Aye. Caleb Anderson.
Aye.
Ben Jarman.
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Thanks, May. Okay, so motion passes, and we have our combined polling places set.
And just one thing,
Yep.
Joe McCabe, special thanks to her. She's our resident guru, you know, on our elections. She does one heck of a job, and you know, like I said, this is her all the way. And you know, any elections we have had in the past, she's done a phenomenal job keeping us out of jail. So hey,
Great.
that's a good thing.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Okay, next we have adoption of the 2021 payable 2022 property tax levy that Randy walked us through earlier.
Yeah, so this is the final property tax. Again, it's about a 2.17% increase from last year, as we noted through the presentation. We are pretty much keeping taxes flat. And again, according to state statute, we have to certify this levy and send it to our counties and MDE by December 28th. So the recommendation is to accept the proposed pay 22 property tax levy as noted.
Okay, thanks, Randy. The resolution, be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 622 that the 2021 payable 2022 property tax levy is adopted in the amount of $56,785,000. No.
Yeah, you're right. 56.
Okay, $826.24. And further, that the school board clerk is authorized to sign the document used to certify the property tax levy to the county auditors and the Minnesota Department of Education. So can I get a motion and a second to approve?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Martins.
Second.
Second by, I'm forgetting your last name, Jarman. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, that motion carries, and thank you, as always, Randy.
Yeah, and just so you know, we'll have to go through the MDE website to certify this after it was approved, so the clerk, you'll be coming in to sign a few copies of this, probably tomorrow or the next day, so, okay.
Sounds good. All right, thank you. Okay, next we have acceptance of the fiscal year 2021 audit report that was presented earlier. I'll just read the resolution.
Yeah, you know, again, I think, you know, Jackie did a nice job presenting the report. I mean, kudos to everybody through the district for, you know, helping maintain good financials and good decision-making. And so, again, a very respectable outcome this year. So, thanks.
Okay, so the resolution, be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 622 that the audit reports for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021, presented by MMKR, be accepted as presented. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Livingston.
Second.
Second by Anderson. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed say nay. Okay, that motion also carries. Thank you. All right, next we have superintendent with policy revisions.
Okay, Madam Chair, directors of the board. As you know, periodically every year, we take a review of current board policies and spend some time reviewing them and making recommendations for updates. Typically, we begin with a list of policies that were sent to us from the Minnesota School Boards Association. Every year, they tend to give us a list of recommended changes to policies based on whatever happened in the previous legislative session. So if there's been changes in state statute language, what have you, they send us some updates. Then we review those at Cabinet. We bring them to us, our school board, at a work session for our first reading together and share our recommended changes. And whether there's any recommendations from the board or not, we take those, go back and sometimes modify them again, but we always have 3 formal readings. The first one at a work session, and the next 2 are at formal business meetings. So for tonight's list, these are board policies that were brought to you first at the work session in November, And then they came back for a second reading at the business meeting in November, and tonight is our formal third reading. Now, many of these, and I'll mention to you what the changes were. So I'm going to read through this list so that we can recall the policy number. They're all in your board packet, of course. The policy name, the number, and then what we've proposed to change. So tonight is a night that, with your approval, we'll actually take action on these items. So I'll walk through this list and just kind of remind you of what each of those proposed changes are. So the first one is Policy 102, Equal Education Opportunity. This contains some 622 language, but it also adds contact information as directed by the Minnesota Department of Education. Policy number 407, Public and Private Personnel Data. This contains some specific 622 language, but also updates definitions, clarifies information about applicants, and realigns some provisions in there. Policy number 413, Harassment and Violence, contains 622 language. It also updates language and aligns with our Minnesota statutory law. Policy number 425, Staff Development. This also contains some 622 language, retitles policy, and adds new legislative provisions regarding mentoring. Policy number 501, School Weapons Policy. It's a recommended change from the Minnesota School Boards Association. It adds language to the definition of what a weapon is so that it can align better with Minnesota statute. Also adds referral to law enforcement and clarifies provisions on Part 2. Also revises citations. Policy number 503, Student Attendance, contains 622 language, adds newly enacted law on religious observances and annual notification to parents. Policy 515, Protection and Privacy of Pupil Records, contains some 622 specific language, revises provision to align better with FERPA, adds language to police liaison provisions, addresses obligations related to records of students with a disability, and modifies additional language. Policy number 524, Internet Acceptable Use and Safety Policy, contains 622 language and revises policy to reflect recent U.S. Supreme Court opinion on Mahoney. It also updates citations. And then policy 534, Unpaid Meal Charges. Now the school meals policy contains 622 language, revises language to align with the changes enacted in 2021. You know, I just realized one moment here. We're missing the policy about the PSEO weighted grades. Do we have that in here, May? Do you remember? I know we had originally said that we were going to pull it, but then we were going to go back. We put it back in. Goodness gracious. Let's pull up the number of that. If you can find the number of that one, we may have to add a separate discussion about that for a moment. But what I want to say about the piece about a policy number. I'm so sorry. I thought that 620. Perfect. Thank you. We had a whole discussion about this last time. So and earlier tonight, policy 620 is also a school board policy that and this came about because of students bringing forth an issue and a request for us to revise the language that's in our current policy about weighted grades. Currently, previously, the only grades that were weighted were those that were college in the schools, AP schools, programs, and also CTE, certain CTE courses. This also adds a provision that would include weighting of grades for PSEO classes. So that one is also supposed to be on this list for inclusion tonight. And I apologize, I didn't have that on my list that I read to you just now, but my request would be to approve that as a third reading as well. Questions, conversation, discussion about that?
Do we need some kind of motion to add that to the list, or?
Let's see. I'm going to pause for a second and see if this was on our list. If it was not published in board packet.
It was not.
Oh, my dear. That's why you sent me the question, I bet. Okay. So let's do the first batch together, and then we'll have to do a second proposal on that one, I think. I think you're right, Nancy.
Okay, so do we have any questions or comments on these? Like Christine said, it's our third reading. Before we make a motion to approve. Questions, comments? Okay, then I'm going to read the Okay, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 622 hereby revises the following policies. 102, equal education opportunity. 406, public and private personnel data. 413, harassment and violence. 425, staff development. 501, school weapons policy. 503, student absence. 515, protection and privacy of pupil records. 524, internet acceptable use and safety policy. 534, unpaid meal charges, now school meal policy. Can I get a motion and a second for approval?
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved by Martin, second by Livingston. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed say nay. Okay, those policies are approved. Thank you for that.
And if you don't mind, I'll make a quick comment about this other policy. So just a little bit of the backstory, and thank you for bringing that up, and May just re-forwarded it back to me. So policy number 620 is credit for learning. That's the title of the policy. You may recall that earlier this fall, we had some students come forward and make a request for us to review the policy.
Christine, before we discuss it, if it's not on the agenda, can we add it to the agenda, or should we? Okay, our next meeting is January 11th.
Would it need to be waited till that one?
We can.
You can't add it to the agenda now at this point. Okay, yeah.
So does it make sense if we add
Sure.
it for our January 11th?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Next on our agenda, we have board communications. Ben, do you have anything?
No, nothing.
Okay. Caleb?
Last Thursday, there was the Ramsey County League of Local Governments annual meeting, and I serve on that as part of my duties as a school board member here. But we had Alan Page speak, and Justice Page spoke a lot about education, and he spoke specifically about the proposed Page Amendment, which has to do with funding for public schools in the state of Minnesota. But it was a really nice evening.
Nice, thanks.
Well, I toured the bathrooms at Skyview, and they seem fine. I mean, there was a question about if there was sufficient privacy, and I'm satisfied that there are. You know, you almost have to go and see them to understand the layout. I mean, they're the only thing that's joint, you know, as far as male, female, is the washing of hands at these sinks. But otherwise, you're totally private in your stall. But if anyone has any concerns about it, I would encourage them to contact what Sarah, the principal of Skyview, or you, or Constance, Sarah Gayette. Yeah, she'd be happy to. She's a really nice person, and she'll be happy. To arrange to have you visit the school, and so you can see for yourself. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Right, thanks.
Okay, so I didn't tour the bathrooms because I work in higher education, and we already have those bathrooms implemented in higher education, and they seem to work just fine for everyone. But since the holidays are coming, I just wanted to wish you all, our families, and everyone out there, our children, of course, happy holidays, and stay safe. So that's all.
All right, thanks, you guys. Next, we have future board date meetings, January 11th, 2022, a special meeting at 4:30 p.m. in the boardroom. Do we need to make an emotion to add the agenda item, or?
I believe you do. Because it's not, we don't have a policy item on the agenda next time.
Yeah, maybe we should do it just to be safe.
For sure. And if I could just add one quick thought, I want to be really clear. This mix-up was mine, not May's, because when we had several concerns brought forward, we pulled it from the packet, and even though I had discussed it, I had failed to remind her, to tell her we were putting it back in, so she was just doing her job, so that's totally on me. And I'm emailing the girls right now who made that request so they can understand that it's coming back next time.
Okay, great. So I just want to, just so we dot our i's and cross our t's, make a motion to add an agenda item to January 11th, 2022 special meeting to include the policy revision. Can I get a motion in a second? Moved by Anderson.
Second.
Second by Jarman. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed say nay. So that motion is approved. Thank you. So January 11th, 2022 is our special meeting, 4:30 p.m. in the boardroom. That's our organizational meeting, and then we'll do the policy item. January 11th, 2022 work study session, 4:45 p.m. or immediately following the adjournment of the January 11th special meeting. And then January 25th, 2022 business meeting, 6 p.m. in the boardroom. Is there anything else? If not, I'll ask for a motion and a second to adjourn. Okay, moved by Livingston.
Second.
Second by Martins. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed say nay. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks very much, you guys. Happy holidays.
Yeah.